Welcome back, everyone, to our third week with Emma. Emma, I'm so excited to have you back to hear about what you're going to present today. Thank you so much for all the information that you have been sharing with us.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jillian. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to week 3 of the program. Thank you all for joining us today. First, I'm going to get into the schedule of today's program. So first, we're going to talk about changes in communication, and we're going to discuss it in the early stage, the middle stage, and the final stage. And then we're going to talk about art and music and how that can influence and help your communication. So first, we're going to talk about changes in communication overall. So you may see changes in the ability to communicate can vary and are based on a person and where he or she is in the disease process. So problems that you can expect to see include difficulty finding the right words, using familiar words repeatedly, describing familiar objects rather than calling them by name. Continued easily losing their train of thought, difficulty organizing words logically, speaking their native language, speaking less often, and relying on gestures rather than speaking. So now we're going to talk about communication specifically in the early stage. So an individual can participate in meaningful conversations and engage in social activities. However, he or she may repeat stories, feel overwhelmed by excessive stimulation, or have difficulty finding the right words. So some tips for communication in the early stage include, don't make assumptions. The disease affects each person differently. Don't exclude the person with the disease from conversations. Talk directly to them, not to their caregiver. Give them patience and have patience for yourself. Give them time to process what they want to say, whether it be their feelings, thoughts, or needs. And it's okay to laugh. Sometimes humor lightens the mood and makes the conversation easier. And spend time with them. They need to see people they love when they are going through this. So moving on to communications in the middle stage. A person will have greater difficulty communicating and will require more direct care compared to the early stage. So some tips include engage in one-to-one conversations in a quiet space with minimal distractions. Speak slowly and clearly. Maintain eye contact because this shows that you care about what they're saying. Give the person plenty of time to respond. Be patient and offer reassurance. Encourage them with whatever they're saying and be patient with the answers that they're giving. Ask one question at a time, preferably yes or no questions. And lastly, avoid arguing, even if they're saying something that you don't necessarily agree with. So moving on to communications in the final stage. A person with Alzheimer's may rely on nonverbal communication, such as facial expressions or vocal sounds. Around-the-clock care or assistance is often needed at this time. So tips for communication include approach the person from the front and identify yourself. Encourage nonverbal communication. If you don't understand what the person is trying to say, ask him or her to point or gesture. And use sights, sounds, smells, and tastes as a form of communication with the person. Consider the feelings behind words or sounds. Sometimes the emotions being expressed are more important than what's being said. Treat the person with dignity and respect. Avoid talking down to the person as if he or she isn't there. And it's okay if you don't know what to say. Your presence is the most important part. So next we're going to talk about music. Music can be very powerful. Studies have shown that music may reduce agitation and improve behavioral issues that are common in the middle stages of the disease. And even in the late stages of Alzheimer's, a person may be able to tap or sing lyrics. to a song from childhood, music provides a way to connect even after verbal communication has become difficult. So use these tips when selecting music for a person with dementia. Identify music that's familiar and enjoyable to the person. If possible, even let them choose the music. Choose a source of music that isn't interrupted by commercials. This can often cause confusion. Use music to create the mood you want. For example, a tranquil piece of music can help create a calm environment, while a faster-paced song from someone's childhood may boost spirit and evoke happy memories. Encourage movement like clapping or dancing to add to the enjoyment. Avoid sensory overload, eliminate competing noises by shutting windows and doors and by turning off the television. Make sure the volume of the music isn't too loud. So moving on to art, art projects can create a sense of accomplishment and purpose. They can provide the person with dementia, as well as you, an opportunity for self-expression. Some tips include keep the projects on an adult level, avoid anything that may be demeaning or seem childlike, build conversation into the projects, provide encouragement and discuss what the person is creating or reminisce. Help the person begin the activity. Let's say the person is painting, you may need to start with moving the paintbrush but most other projects should only require basic instruction and assistance. Use safe materials and avoid toxic substances and sharp tools. Allow plenty of time, keeping in mind that the person doesn't have to finish the project in one sitting.
Emma, I'm wondering if there's any suggestions that you can think of to maybe share to other caregivers. So some suggestions that you found helpful when communicating and interacting with your grandfather.
Sure. Some examples that I would say are maybe painting, match and sorting picture cards is also another good one. Making a scrapbook for memory's sake. Everyone always likes to look through pictures or activities that you've done. And decorate desserts maybe after you're baking, maybe just decorate together.
That sounds like such fun activities to do together. It sounds like you really focused on different tasks or activities that you could do with your grandfather. What about, I know you've said in the past that music was also really helpful for your grandfather. What were some positive changes that you noticed when he would listen to music?
I remember that when my grandfather would listen to music, his eyes would light up, like especially um, Indian music, like from our culture, like that would definitely, I think, bring him memories of childhood and bring him happy memories to look back on. And sharing that with especially all his grandchildren brought a joy to his face.
So it sounds like you found music that he would listen to when he was growing up and in his early adulthood.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions or tips on how people could find music that has limited commercials? Like any music streaming like platforms that you would suggest to be able to, especially music that maybe was out like 40 years ago?
Right. So there's this app called Musi, MUSI, and it's similar to YouTube, but it doesn't have any ads. So it does, how like YouTube has like ads that you can sometimes skip. Musi doesn't have any of those. So maybe you can use that. Also, something else I learned how to do is create playlists or like tracks. So that would also be a good thing.
Right, like burn a CD.
Right, exactly.
Or make a playlist on like an iPad or an iPhone.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because sometimes with YouTube, commercials pop up, and you're right, it can be very distracting or can be confusing because sometimes it will be right in the middle of the song.
Yeah, exactly.
So I like all the different art activities that you suggested and the different, how you found music to be really helpful. Any other ways of communicating with your grandfather that would be helpful for other caregivers?
Yeah, so I think I discussed this last week also. But playing games is definitely one thing. Maybe even like watching movies um, that you both have seen before and you just both love.
Hmm.
Also, I think I said Karen's last week, but another one is also cards or maybe even Uno, something along those lines.
Hmm. Yeah, those are really fun activities. Um, and also, from a caregiver perspective, what would you suggest to other caregivers to how they can kind of maybe manage their own frustration when
Mhm.
they're finding it's difficult to communicate or they're having a hard time understanding their loved one? How can they kind of manage those feelings?
So something that I love to do still is journal. So I think that's definitely one thing.
Hmm.
Um, Also talk to people about it, talk to other loved ones. Make sure you surround yourself with people that you trust and that are there for you all the time. That's definitely one thing.
Hmm.
Also, maybe like stretch, run, go on a walk, or anything physical because physical activity relieves stress and anxiety from every part of your body, and it helps you feel good no matter what. So
Hmm.
that's
Right.
another thing.
That's such a great coping skill. And I love how each week you've kind of shared different tools to manage stress. And journaling was one of the suggestions that you had talked about in week one.
Right.
And I love the idea of trying to exercise or even just some kind of movement. I know
Mhm.
we're a little bit limited because it's so cold outside,
Um,
but definitely there are physical activities that we can do inside, even if
Absolutely, yeah.
it's stretching or playing a yoga video.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's so many workout videos on YouTube now. Um, Anything like that can definitely help you.
Hmm. Absolutely. Um, and I like that website that you shared to play the music. Can you tell me what that website is again? And I'll add it on underneath in the Facebook comments.
Sure, it's called Musi, MUSI,
Okay.
and it has all the videos that are on YouTube. It doesn't play the ads.
Okay. So it's musi.com.
Right.
Okay.
It's also
Awesome.
an app on Apple.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
such a great suggestion. Okay. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you everyone for listening and following along to the video. Emma, do you have any other last minute thoughts or suggestions or comments for
Oh, sure.
caregivers?
So communicating isn't easy whatsoever, especially with a person with dementia, but just do the best you can. That's all you can do. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Great. Thank you for all your information today, Emma.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully we'll be able to use some of these coping skills and go for a walk when the weather gets a little bit nicer.